Ladies and gentlemen, how do?
Canadian consular officials in the United States are urgently seeking more information about the death of a Canadian citizen who died in the custody of Immigration and Customs Enforcement in Florida. The agency says Johnny Noviello was found unresponsive in Miami on June 23rd while he was in ICE custody and pronounced dead at the scene. The cause of death is still under investigation.
Johnny Noviello, a 49-year-old citizen of Canada. He was in the custody of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and was found unresponsive and pronounced deceased by the Miami Fire and Rescue Department on June 23rd at 1:36 p.m. The cause of death is still under investigation. What they've said is Noviello entered the United States on January 2nd, 1988, so just about or more than 3 decades ago. In a legal visa status, he became a lawful permanent resident in October of 1991, and then just recently, a couple of years ago, on October 12, 2023, he was convicted in a nearby county, Volusia County, for racketeering, trafficking in oxycodone, and trafficking in illegal drugs as well, and sentenced to 12 months in prison. Then, just this past month, about a month and a half ago, on May 15th of this year, he was arrested by ICE at the Florida Department of Corrections Probation Office. And that is when this incident took place. He was found unresponsive once again earlier this week. And according to the release by ICE, medical staff at the Bureau of Prisons Detention Center, they performed CPR according to ICE and administered a defibrillator. They also called 911. And then he was pronounced dead 40 minutes later after this initial incident took place where he was found unresponsive. Now, we know that according to Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand, the Canadian consular offices and officials are urgently seeking more information from U.S. officials, and she also offered her sincere condolences.
What do we know about Johnny Noviello and what brought him here and what ended up kind of taking him to that detention center in Miami?
Yeah, so I spoke with his father, I spoke with his lawyer, and what we know about him was he was a Canadian citizen. He moved to Daytona Beach when he was about 10 years old in 1986, I believe, 1986, 1988, 88. And so he grew up in Florida. He grew up in Daytona Beach. He came here legally on a legal visa. He got his green card in 1991. And then in 2017, him and his father were both charged with selling opioids out of their family auto shop. And so in 2023, he was convicted of that and he served some time in jail. And he was released for a year on community control, so basically house arrest. And then he was put on probation. He was put on probation in February of this year. And in May, he was picked up at the probation office by ICE. And they initiated removal proceedings against him, which can happen to green card holders who have been convicted of certain crimes. And he was placed in ICE custody in the Federal Detention Center in downtown Miami for about 6 weeks before he passed away this Monday in the center. Right, so some of the cases, the cause of death is still under investigation. So the government releases extensive reports when someone died, detailing the timeline leading up to their death under federal law. We do know that the other 3 who died this year, one was in Broward Transitional Center. She was a Haitian woman who passed away, and her official cause of death, I believe, is still pending. And the other 2 died after they were detained at Chrome, a detention center here just outside of Miami. And so my colleague and I did an investigation into those cases. One was a Honduran man and the other was from Ukraine. And so we pulled as much of their medical history as we could. And what we found is, both of them were ruled natural deaths. One died of a stroke, the Ukrainian man. And the other one, the Honduran man, the medical examiner's office said that he died of complications of schizoaffective disorder. And so we dug into that a bit, and the Honduran man, Henry Ruiz-Guillen, the experts that we talked to said, that's not a sufficient cause of death. You don't really die of schizophrenia. You die of what happens, you know, different actions, and medication. And so they said that basically this man's death raises a lot of questions. We don't know exactly why he died, and this explanation we were given doesn't quite make sense. And then what we found with the Ukrainian man, Maxim Chernak, who passed away in February, is that medical records show that staff at Chrome thought he may be intoxicated when he was found having a stroke. And so they waited about 40 minutes before calling an ambulance, which experts also raised concern about and said that, every minute really counts when you're having a stroke. So that's what we know about the circumstances for the Florida deaths. The most recent death before Johnny Noviello was in Atlanta. He was a Mexican man, and the official cause of death, I believe, is again still under investigation, but it appears to be an apparent suicide. So the next steps are that there is likely an autopsy being conducted to investigate his death and the circumstances around his death. And ICE must release that report that I mentioned within 90 days. So that should be coming within that 90-day window. We know from his medical history, from his family, that he did have epilepsy and he was on seizure medication. So I think the question, in a lot of these deaths that are happening in ICE custody is really just, did they receive the medical treatment that they needed? Did they receive the medication that they needed? Did it come in time? And so those are what we'll be looking for in the report that comes out within the next 90 days, and also in the autopsy.
You, in your role as an immigration lawyer, Richard, you have warned that the U.S. border can be unpredictable, especially under this administration. Those reapplying for visas or doing business in the U.S. Have concerns about this. What do Canadians, including visitors to the U.S., need to know?
Oh my goodness, be careful. Everything is fair game now, including your social media. If you clicked on a like for some association, group, pronouncement, demonstration, you enter the Gaza fray, you are at risk, because the American border people can find it and begin to question you. Where did you travel? Who are your family members? Who are your friends? What groups are you associated with? And under new guidelines on the American side, they can not just ban you from the United States in future, but you are at risk of being detained for further immigration processes. So the door is wide open, and a Canadian passport will not shield you from American detention. That's clear. As well, beware, over the next few months, if you hold a Canadian passport but were born in the wrong country, according to the United States, you're at additional risk. So our 300,000 plus Canadian Iranian population is presently at risk. Do not seek entry to the United States if you can avoid it. If you have to go south, try pre-clearance at an airport, not a land border. It's more difficult to give you a hard time while you're physically present in Canada than when you step across the line at secondary in an American immigration office. As well, don't play games. These people are highly trained, sophisticated in reading body language, and they will know if you're trying to hide something and continue probing until the Americans get what they want to get. Have a plan B. Have a plan B. If you don't show up to your destination, have family members be given a set of instructions what to do, who to contact, because if you're disappeared in an Orwellian sense, you cannot be found until significant passage of time. And as we've noted, immigration detention carries physical risk. The last thing is, clean that car. Go through your trunk, go through all components of that vehicle to remove anything that can trigger an immigration officer's inspection. You're not just talking immigration. With tariffs, they're going to be checking to see if you're trying to smuggle in things like computers, phones, anything on that tariff list, and charge you with trying to evade a tariff. That carries significant consequences. So it's everything: immigration, customs, your groups of association, your social media, total risk Remedies, good luck with that. Costs money, time, and you're not going to be a happy camper in an immigration detention center south of this border.
Some fascinating insights. Richard Kurland, you've certainly given us a lot to think about. That is immigration lawyer Richard Kurland. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome.